Joining me right now, United States Ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador John Bolton. Ambassador, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be with you.
So Donald Trump really took pride in separating himself from lobbyists during the campaign. He seems that he's doing that as president-elect as well. Do you support this decision? Why do you see this as an important part of his first 100 days?
Well, I do support it. I think he sees what a lot of Americans see, that the buddy system in Washington is such a huge organization that it's very hard for people to come in newly elected and actually make change. There are a lot of components to it, but I think the networks of lobbyists is certainly one of the things that has attracted attention. It doesn't bother me at all but the kind of ban that he's been talking about. I'm sure there'll be other steps to follow as well.
Ambassador, obviously there are a lot of closed-door meetings going on in terms of new positions there for a second day in a row. Yesterday he had a closed-door discussion with big names in the media as well. When it comes to the Secretary of State position, what do you think is most important for that role? And what do you think is most important in terms of representing America for the rest of the world, in terms of the priorities that the rest of the world want to see from that person?
Well, I think the country faces a lot of grave threats after 8 years of the Obama presidency, and I think beginning to move on them really from day one is going to be critical. The threat of radical Islamic terrorism continues to spread. The threat of nuclear proliferation from the likes of Iran and North Korea. I think there are longer strategic-term threats from China and Russia. I think there's the consuming challenge that doesn't get much attention at all, but the question of global governance and the efforts of many people to subsume American sovereignty. So I think there are a number of priorities that you have to begin to address on day one. I think the president-elect could take care of getting that discussion started in his inaugural address. I think that's going to be very important to see what he begins to lay out there.
Ambassador Bolton, Leah Gabriel here. You know, when I look at the list of names that are sort of being floated for potential Secretary of State, you don't see a lot with a lot of foreign policy experience. You're one of the people who does have a lot of foreign policy experience. Of course, Senator Bob Corker, David Petraeus, their names have also been out there. One of the things that you have really criticized is the nuclear deal with Iran. You basically proposed bombing Fordo, bombing some of the nuclear sites in Iran. But what I've really seen in the past 8 years is North Korea developing a nuclear capability that no one's talking about. What's your take, and what do you see as the administration's needs as we look at North Korea and their growing nuclear threat?
Well, with all due respect, I've been talking about it for 10 years since I left the UN job, but I tell you, it's a very significant point. Your question is important because it ties in directly with Iran. You know, the Director of National Intelligence, General Clapper, said a few weeks ago in a speech that we could pretty well give up on the idea of getting North Korea to denuclearize after 5 nuclear tests and perhaps more to come. And that is a statement that after 25 years of negotiation with North Korea, they've simply powered ahead and are very close to getting a delivery capability that would put them within range of hitting targets on the west coast of the United States. Does anybody seriously think that a 26th year of negotiation with North Korea will change that? I don't think so. Now, we've had nearly 20 years of negotiation through 3 administrations with Iran. And where is Iran today? Closer to deliverable nuclear weapons than they've ever been. Do you think the 21st year of negotiation is going to change anything? I don't think so. That's one reason why I hope the president-elect abrogates this agreement in the early days of his administration. It was a strategic mistake for the United States. It's not getting any better with age.
But the Obama administration, Ambassador, is actually trying to fortify that very deal. Story in the Wall Street Journal yesterday that they will look to ease more sanctions against Iran, even handing out kind of business contracts to American companies so they can transact business in Iran. Does that make it harder for President-elect Trump and his administration to undo that nuclear deal?
Well, every day that goes by makes it harder, but that doesn't make it any less necessary from a strategic point of view. This is entirely consistent with the script that the Obama administration has followed to try to link American and European businesses through trade and investment deals with Iran, so that there's an inherent lobby against doing anything about the nuclear weapons. And nobody put it better than Paul Ryan when he described Secretary of State John Kerry as a shill for the Ayatollahs, acting as though he were president of the Tehran Chamber of Commerce.
In terms of Russia, how do you think the U.S. should be dealing with Russia at this point?
Well, I think you have to oppose them when their actions are contrary to American interest, and if you can find common ground, do it. I actually think there's more of an opportunity in some aspects on the war on terrorism to get cooperation from Russia when there's a strong president in the White House. I think Putin has no incentive whatever to pay attention to a weak president when Russian interests are at stake, and ironically, he doesn't have incentive to cooperate either. So I think you can see a change here, but let's be clear. Foreign policy is dictated by national interest. Nobody knows Russia's better than Putin's. He plays a weak hand very skillfully, and that isn't going to change.
Yeah, and real quick on TPP, do you worry that declaring that we're out of TPP on day one gives China an opportunity or an open window to do its own deals with some of the countries that we were, in fact, already in business with?
Well, I think what needs to be done is to see if this can't be renegotiated. I think that's the point Trump has made repeatedly. He's not against international trade. He's against bad trade deals. Just because a deal is called a free trade deal doesn't make it a free trade deal. And so I think re-examining this is the way to go. I think the Obama administration did a wretched job of describing some of the strategic imperatives behind this treaty. And I think the treaty itself is far removed from an ideal free trade agreement.
Ambassador, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much.
Glad to be with you.
Ambassador John Bolton there.